Like grumpy. No, I'm just a little stressed out and nervous. I've never done this before. Can you hear me all right? If you can, type five, please. Cool. Thanks. I appreciate it. How's your night going? Your evening's going better than your day did. Yeah. My day was actually pretty good. Just kind of took it easy today. Made the video that you guys watched on the premiere and just doing live for the first time to see what it's all about. If you guys have a question, feel free to post it below. You can ask anything you want. I may not answer it, but you can ask. So the next video that I got coming up for you guys is a key making service that I tried to use, where you send them a copy of your key and a picture of your key and tell them what you want. They're supposed to send it to you. And I ordered it like at the beginning of December, like December the 3rd or something like that. And on like December the 28th, they still hadn't even shipped it yet. So, yeah, that's just been my last couple of months has been, yeah, kind of, yeah, just kind of one of those, what do you call that? Oh, Murphy's Law. That's what I was trying to think of. Murphy's Law. Whatever can go wrong will go wrong. Can't win for losing. Yeah, something like that. But yeah, is what it is. I eventually end up getting my money back, but I'll save the rest of the details for the upcoming video. It'll be in the next week. I'll tell you guys the rest of the story around that one. But yeah, basically, they dropped the ball every opportunity they had to get it right. They ended up dropping the ball. So if you have a question, go ahead and post it below. I'll be sure to answer it for you. Well, I don't know if I'm guaranteed that I'm going to answer it, but yeah, you can ask. Yeah, this is a directional mic, and it's supposed to be that way. So sorry about that. I'll try not to turn my head too much while I'm doing the live stream. Thanks for joining me tonight, guys. I appreciate it. Don't really have anything necessarily to share with you guys or to talk about specifically. Like I said, just kind of testing out the first live stream to see how this all works and whatnot. So thank you for joining me and being part of this. I do appreciate it. No, I'm not using OBS or StreamYard. I'm familiar with those services and I've heard of them, but like I said, this is the very first live stream I've ever done. So uh, I don't use those. I don't know anything about them, but I probably should if it's something I'm going to stick with them and something that I'm going to do. I don't know if you guys saw my update video that I did here a couple of weeks ago, but basically we're just now getting back into the mix of doing videos. We finally got fiber optic where we live, so it doesn't take a month of Sundays to upload a video. And got a new computer that's very good at processing and rendering video, so that doesn't take forever and a day as well. So it just makes it a lot easier and, quite honestly, more fun to do. That it's not as much like work when you're not waiting forever to render video and to save it and upload it and all of those things. It literally takes a fraction of the time now compared to what it used to. OBS is free and it's pretty good. Okay, that's something to keep in mind. Hey Eddie, how's it going? Yeah, it is good to be back in the mix. We just had a lot going on over the last, I think, 3 years or something like that. Um, yeah, just a lot going on during that 3 years. A lot of change, a lot of things going on, and so we're just now getting back to the point where we've got enough normalcy, so to speak, um, that we can do this. So let's see. Palmetto Prayer Trooper says when we moved, we got about 15 minutes more rural and ended up with much faster internet. Also, fiber for $10 less. Oh yeah, that's good. Yeah, actually, what we had here, I didn't complain about it when we first got here because it's quite a bit better than the service we had when we lived in Montana, even though it was just DSL as well. Um, it wasn't. I mean, it was better than what I had in Montana, but it still wasn't good. And I had to pay for both a um, DSL service plus a local POTS line, Plano telephone service POTS, pay for a POTS line as well. And so I was able to get the top of the line fiber optic package for the same price as what I ended up having to pay for um, the the DSL. So pretty happy with that. It's about $80 a month, but that's what I was paying before, and the not only is what we have now quite a bit faster, but there's a lot more bandwidth, right? So, like, speed is how fast you can drive down the highway. Bandwidth is how many lanes there are, and so we ended up getting both better speed and bandwidth, and with still having let's see, how many do we still have at home? We still have 8 kids who live at home with us. Yeah, 8. And so, we have a lot of internet users, and so we needed both bandwidth and speed. And so it's been working out really nice, really well for us so far, and we like it. So you went down from 50 down to a gig. Okay. Yeah, we went up like crazy. The speeds are, yeah, it's like I said, it takes a fraction of the time to upload a video now from what it did, maybe a tenth or something like that. You're I'm trying to go down and you're trying to go up. Palmetto Paratrooper said he's up to 6 children now. Yeah, yeah, we've got I've got one that's turning 18 pretty soon, and she's gonna be looking at getting a job and whatnot. Um, might be moving out with one of her older sisters or something like that, but she's welcome to be here as well. And we love her and like having her around, as well as all of our children. And it's kind of an interesting thing. People just look at that really differently. I remember I was one day I was talking to my wife's grandma, and she was an interesting lady, and I never really had any like really bad or negative experience with her or run-ins or anything like that. But one day I was talking to her, and I was just telling her, I was like, yeah, I love my kids. I can't imagine a time and when they wouldn't be around or they wouldn't be with me. And she looked at me and she laughed at me, like, you know, a real laugh, like belly laugh, like how stupid. And I was just like, well, okay, I don't know how to take this. And she's like, well, the best years of my life were after our four kids were grown and out of the house and so on and so forth. I was like, hey, I'm glad that was your experience, but not mine. And, I love my children. I like having them around. And yeah, Eddie, there definitely is something to that. You know, if you're fairly skilled yourself and you're able to teach your kids, there's a lot that they can help with. With my health and my back issues and stuff like that. I just can't do the physical labor that I used to. However, all of my older children are very capable, and um, my fourth oldest boy and my second and third oldest girls over the last 2 years, we've put on, well, I supervised, they did the labor, but they did we did the floors in the house and we did the trim because we had to take the trim off to redo the floor. We redid the roof, several other things like that. So, yeah, there's definitely something to be said for that. And, we children are a blessing from the Father for sure. All right, looks like we're down to one person left in the room. Well, guys, I'm not going to stand here too long, but I did want to thank you for joining me on this first. Well, no, it looks like there's three. I don't know. I don't know exactly how all this live stream stuff works, so I'm still kind of figuring it out. So I appreciate your patience in bearing with me. If you guys have any questions, go ahead and post them below. I don't know if it's the same three people that have been here since the beginning, probably, but who knows? So if you do have a question, feel free to ask and post it below, or if you have a comment based on anything, or if there's a video that you guys would like to see me create based on things I've done in the past or anything like that, feel free to share any comments or suggestions with me as well. All right, Eddie, good to see you too, brother. And yep, hit the rack, get some sleep. I'll be heading that way. Well, unfortunately, not anytime soon, but yeah, with the neuropathy in my legs, I'm just not able to sleep on a regular, consistent basis, and not able to fall asleep easily. So, one of the kids just opened up the refrigerator, and a bunch of stuff fell out. Ten Tiger says, "I liked your video on putting away 500 pounds of food." Hey, thanks, Ten Tigers. I appreciate that. Yeah, that's an important thing, and admittedly, I'm not much of a gloomer doomer. Like the sky is falling, the sky is falling, but at the same time, definitely not getting rid of any of my preps or anything like that. So, thank you for that, Ten Tigers. I appreciate that. How are you tonight, Ten Tigers? What you got going on? Yeah, it does. It's the way I look at it. Ten Tigers it's an insurance policy, right? You insure a lot of people insure their life. You legally have to insure your car if you drive your car. You insure your house, stuff like that. And no one's wishing or wanting anything bad to happen in any of those situations, right? But it gives you great peace of mind in knowing that you have it, that it's available, and God forbid that you should ever need it. It's there and available for you. And as the saying goes, you can call on it when the time comes. What about you, Ten Tigers? Do you have any preps? What's your guys' outlook for 2023? All right, Ten Tiger says cooking buffalo wings right now. Oh, that sounds good. Wings were on sale. Yeah, we do that a lot too. Buy the stuff on sale and then freeze it. Um, I know here a while ago, excuse me, I did a whole bunch of um, canned a whole bunch of chicken thighs, and I still have tons of them. And they're like 4 years old now, probably maybe 5 years old, something like that at this point. And I just made chicken noodle soup with them a couple of weeks ago, and still perfect, still tastes great. What do you guys think about 2023? Okay, so this is interesting. It says there's 0 people in here. Oh, no, Tin Tiger is still there. So obviously that's not very accurate. Okay, note to self. Tin Tiger says, I pick a month, then concentrate on different things. January is for medical supplies. February will be for long-term foods. That that sounds like a good plan there, Tin Tigers. And I think it's also good to acknowledge that you're planning it out. There's an old saying that says that people don't plan to fail, they fail to plan. So good on you. And that's definitely an important thing to keep in mind and to be aware of as you're moving forward, especially in that 500 pounds of food video that I did, to acknowledge the fact that a lot of times when you're living like a paid paycheck to paycheck existence, it can be fairly hard to come up with the money to do large projects like that, like putting up 500 pounds of food all at one time. And by planning ahead and using your income tax money, that instead of just blowing it, right, that um, that you can use that money for um, projects like that. Um, Excuse me a second, guys. The kids want to ask me something. What's that? All right, Palmetto Paratrooper says, as soon as I start talking about my internet speeds, it takes a dump for the first time. Yeah, Murphy's Law, right? Whatever can go wrong will. Yeah, and yeah, there's just something about that, right? As soon as you either that or you start bragging about something, it's like, oh no, my internet's perfect, it always works great. That's I'm sure a sign is just gonna immediately take a dump. So what are you guys' predictions for 2023? I've asked a couple of times and no one's answered. So either that's not something you care about or you don't want to talk about it. So um, I guess I'll start it out. For 2023, what I see happening is we're going to go into a worldwide recession. And I don't think that those of us here in North America, um, Canada, America, and Mexico, I think we're going to fare better than the rest of the world, simply because of where we're at and the farming capabilities that we have. And a lot of people don't know this or don't understand it fully, in my opinion, when just simply that here in this country, we have hectares of acres that are sitting in a conservancy resource program, or CRP. And basically, the government has been paying these farmers and ranchers for allowing the ground to just lay there fallow and unused. And so, basically, at any time, the government can call on those people to, till up that land and plant crops and stuff like that. Um, yeah, for me personally, I definitely don't see like a Mad Max scenario or anything like that. I think we're There's going to be some changes, obviously, in the financial system. Things are going to go to digital currencies, CBDCs, central bank digital currencies, as well as um, um, cryptocurrencies. Are any of you guys invested in cryptocurrencies? Tin Tiger says, but would they? I don't think the government will take care of the people. Um, yeah, it's kind of it depends on who you're listening to, who you're talking to. Um, while I don't think that what's actually going to happen in our country is that we're going to have like the Alex Jones Prison Planet, and if you don't know what that is, just Google it. Alex Jones in Prison Planet. Well, I don't think that that's what we're going to have. If you stop and think about it, like every community of any size in this country has a Walmart right around it. And secondly to that, um, any small community of any size now has a Dollar General. And uh, right, wrong, or indifferent, I think that both Walmart and Dollar General are going to be part of the system that the government uses to help people through this transition into the new financial system. Would they allow the use of balance? Yeah, that's what it's for. The Conservancy Resource Program is specifically for that, to save that farmland for when we actually need it. And so, yeah, especially if there's a worldwide recession, or even depression that's going on, and guys, it's a lot worse than what they're telling us, right? And shrinkflation, right? You buy bleach, you get 3 quarts now, not a gallon. So you lost 25% of the product. And then if they raise the price by 20%, the true inflation rate is actually 50%. Right? You get 25% less. They marked up the price 25%. And so it's actually 50%. And so, yeah. And I would love to talk to a statistician to see, what are the chances or whatever, that all of these corporations, right? They just all spontaneously, of their own free will and accord, decided that, that they were going to, you know, start shrinking the boxes, and how much food you're getting in the same box, stuff like that. And I've even gone here recently. I've even gone into the um, it's called the Wayback Time Machine, and you can go in and you can look at products and different things like that, on like Walmart, and see, 2 years ago, for the Great Value bleach, what the price was, and was it a gallon, or was it 3 quarts, or whatever, stuff like that. So yeah, it's like, I don't really know who they are, but I know that they are there, and they're running the show. All right, Tin Tiger says, I think ESG and WEF. I'm assuming Tin Tigers, what's ESG? I know WEF is the World Economic Forum. Will keep the land from being used. Carbon and CO2, Yeah, I know they'll try, but whether they'll be able to or not remains to be seen. A lot of places, especially here in the States now, are making a stand, kind of, doing the right thing for the right reasons, so to speak. Tin Tigers also says 2023 will be bad, but 2024 will be very bad. It will take 10 years or more to come out of this. Yeah, I know that's what they want. I don't know whether or not, in my opinion, and it's just that, my opinion, but yeah, I don't really think that that's what's going to happen. Myself personally, again, mind you, I'm not getting rid of anything that I have. any of my preps or anything like that. Let's see. He says ESG is environmental, social, and government policy. Oh yeah, okay, yeah, that goes along with like the 15-minute cities and things like that. And if you don't know what 15-minute cities is, guys, just Google it. You'll find it. Um, yeah, I think that. Well, I don't know if you guys. Let's see. I know Palmetto Paratrooper and Eddie are fairly. Oh, Eddie's gone now. I don't know about you, Ten Tigers, but um, for those that tend to be faith based, no matter what that is. But anyways, there was a guy. His name was Kim Clement, and he, according to him and others, and the reason why I'm prefacing it that way is I'm not like, as the old saying goes, I'm not putting my neck on the chopping block for him. But his name is Kim Clement, um, Kim, Kim, and then Clement, 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 and he prophesied in great detail about Donald J. Trump, and he by name named him, and he actually went and met with Donald Trump. Kim Clement did before he passed away. He's no longer with us. He's gone on to be with the Father, and he prophesied that um, that Trump would serve 2 terms, not consecutive terms, but 2 terms. So, in my opinion, and again, it's just that, but in my opinion, Trump will serve again. And just like Trump turned it around the first time, I think he'll turn it around the second time. And in my opinion, it gets right back to that same old, the people that are running the show right now aren't stupid. They know exactly what they're doing. And, it's just one of those things where we as human beings, we tend to think that other people think about things and see things the same way we do, right? Because we're all basically good people. We're not evil. We don't have evil intent in our hearts, generally speaking, things like that. And yeah, it's just one of those things to where, again, I don't necessarily have to know who they are to know what they are doing, right? And as a very wise man that once walked the earth said, "Don't listen to what people say. Watch what they do." Also, in my opinion, I think a good sign of that is what Gates and the gal from Colorado, Roe something. I can't remember her name right now. But anyway, a little Spitfire gal from Colorado, and they were holding up the whole vote to for the Speaker of the House, and so yeah. See, Palmetto Paratrooper says, I don't think Trump is much different than the rest of them in the big picture. Yeah, I don't either, Palmetto Paratrooper. I don't think that, Donald John Trump is, the second coming of Messiah or, anything like that. I think he's a very imperfect person. But in my opinion, I do think that the Father is using him. Bobart, yeah, that's right. 10 Tigers. The representative from Colorado. Her name is Bobert. Um, but anyways, yeah, I just don't think that. Um, yeah, the powers that be right now are trying to destroy America from the inside out. In my opinion, they're trying to destroy America from the inside out. And these dangerous and destructive policies that they're implementing right now are there for a reason, and that reason is to destroy our company from the inside out. And so basically all we have to do is put a stop to that one way or another, right? Whether or not that's ever actually going to happen, who the heck knows. Time will tell, obviously, and we'll have to play it by ear and wait to see what comes of it and what happens. But it's just one of those things where it is what it is, and yeah. I was well, as I was explaining that, it made me think of Cyrus, right? The King Cyrus, when the Israelites are rebuilding the temple wall, right? They were fighting with one hand and rebuilding the wall with the other, right? And Cyrus was a very imperfect king, right? But God the Father, whatever you choose to address source as, right? Um, still use, and all through the scriptures, really, God uses imperfect people. And so, just for me personally, when I see Donald Trump, um, yeah, just is an imperfect person that God is using during this period of time. And will he go down in history as something as important as Cyrus was? I don't know. We'll just have to wait and see. Let's see. Tin Tiger says, "And make them money while we are on the way down." Yeah, exactly. And that's also part of the whole part about futures exchange and things like that, right? Betting that the market tanks. And yeah, in my way of thinking, that should probably, I think, be illegal, especially when they have as much control over the markets as they do. It'll be interesting to see what happens over the next year and how these things are implemented and how they come out. The revelations from Elon Musk from Twitter, right? In my opinion, very revealing, right? The conspiracy theorists aren't so much conspiracy anymore, are they? Yeah, it's just the opposite now. It's like, no, these, the things that we have suspected that they're doing because of their actions and what they're actually doing, despite what they're saying, right, was pointing us towards that. And now we're seeing that, yeah, that really is the way that it is. And the in my opinion, what I would like to see, in the upcoming revelations revelations, shall we say, from Twitter would be the Fauci files. And yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens with all of that and what ends up being released, shall we say. So and I'm trying to be specific enough so you know what I'm talking about, but at the same time, not get the videos or the channel flagged any more than what it already is, and demonetized any more than it already is. All right, Tin Tiger says, but the regular people I talk to don't know these findings. Yeah, you're right, they don't. And so you just have to talk about them as an example. um, you know I'm such a cheapskate. I don't get my hair cut for a couple of months usually. And if you look at the videos for just a week or two ago, I had quite a bit longer hair than I have right now. But anyways, I was in the barber chair, and I'm talking to the barber, and I'm telling him about this stuff, and and out of my peripheral vision, and I'm watching the other dudes in the barber shop, and I'm telling him about all this stuff. He didn't know about it either, but it was a packed house. And so I was able to vicariously share with the other people about this stuff. And they yeah, I was um, for those of you that have dogs, right? When your dog hears that certain thing, they kind of tilt their head, or their ears perk up, whatever. And yeah, there's definitely some heads that were tweaking and ears that were perking as I was talking about all of the revelations that have been released. And sad but true, the sad part about a lot of this is that they're lies of omission, right? The the mainstream media, the news, whatever you want to call them, they know about all of this stuff. And in my opinion, them not covering it, them not saying anything about it, is a lie of omission. And if you've ever been in the financial services industry, you know that you have to have insurance for um, um, errors of commission and omission. And commission means that you did the wrong thing. You may not have intended to, but you did the wrong thing. Omission means you should have done something and you didn't. And in my opinion, that's exactly where the modern day media is. They know all this stuff and they're intentionally, deliberately choosing not to cover it and to not to talk about it. You know, my own parents, they live on my property with me, and they have their own house, but they live on the property, the acreage that we have. And in talking to them, a lot of the stuff they don't know about either, and they watch the early morning news, the lunch hour news, the 6 o'clock news, and the 10 o'clock news type thing. It's just their generation. They're in their 70s, and that's just who they are. And they don't hear about it, they don't know about it, and if the magic box doesn't tell them, they don't know it. And even though I'm their son, and they believe me, they trust me, it's still, well, I'm not official, right? Like yes, the media has definitely picked their side, absolutely. Yeah. And it's just one of those things. It is what it is, and there's nothing that you or I is going to do about that, or is going to change about that for the time being, other than doing the things that we can. Right? I've had this channel going for 10 years, and you can go back and see. I think it was probably 7 or 8 years ago. I started telling people um, that YouTube was going to start cracking down on people that were telling the truth and people that weren't um, towing the line, so to speak, on um, just the whatever the groupthink was in the woke community. And actually, when this all first started and first started happening, it was that YouTube started turning down all advertising from advertisers who sold firearms. And the Cabela's account was probably the most notable at the time. And I did a video about it and told the whole YouTube community, my limited reach as a small channel, granted, mind you, but still I did. And, that's all we can do, right? We all have our own voice, and the ability to tell the people that are in our sphere of influence. And other than that, that's all there is. I know for myself, I've been trying to make more of a concerted effort to get stuff out on Rumble or Twitter, um, because Twitter. I'm doing a live stream right now. No, 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 not right now. Sorry about this, guys. This is the first time I've done a live stream, and they didn't know that I was doing that. So I'm trying to be respectful of your guys' time, and be a good dad too. So I appreciate that. But anyways, to finish the thought, that's all we can do is the things that we have that are in our own um, wheelhouse, so to speak, in our own sphere of influence. The barbershop is a good place to talk to people about things, and so all we can do is the best we can. All right, this is Tin Tucker says, I may be older than you, but I was always the stupid kid to the parents. Yeah. Uh, just for me personally, that even for me personally, that even goes back to, in high school, I was never popular, just wasn't. But I was a good athlete. I was one of the first freshmen in my high school that ever lettered, and had a letterman's jacket or whatever. And so like people knew who I was, but I wasn't popular. I was a preacher's kid, and so I was kind of like the outcast. And hey guys, keep it down. Sorry about that. Hopefully that cut out when I turned my head away from it. It should have, so I apologize if it didn't. But um, I was not a good student in high school. I did not care about the stuff that I was learning at that time, and it's just like I knew a lot of the stuff that they were trying to teach me was stuff that I didn't have any uh, care or need to know, and you know I'd say probably 80 or 90% of the things that I felt that way about were in fact that way. However, saying that, that's not to say that I didn't go on and finish my educational goals because I did. But going back to that time, yeah, and the reason why I'm saying the point I'm saying that it's like on Facebook or things like that. I've kind of reconnected here and there with different people who knew me from back in those days, and I'm like, wow, you're not the same person that you were back then. I was like, well, yeah, we all mature, we grow up. Hopefully, we all keep learning uh, as we're getting older and maturing, and become a better version of ourselves than what we were as a teenager, right? But all we can do is the best that we can do, and I'm not here to please anybody other than my heavenly Father and my wife and my family, things like that. I want to be good to them and be a good husband and a good father. Um, a good patriot. For the as the old saying goes, you don't have to love your country. You don't have to love your government to love your country. So I definitely think that that's something that I personally take to heart. So, what are you doing on your house right now, Palmetto Paratrooper? What project you got going on? I'll give you a minute to answer that. What I'm working on right now is I got to replace the pressure switch to my compressor. I got when we were doing the roof, my little I think it's a 7 gallon compressor started crapping out on me. So I went out and bought the Harbor Freight 29 gallon compressor, and it's the old school one, that has like a dedicated electric motor and then a dedicated compressor. And the silly thing ran for like I don't know 48 hours or something like that, only shutting down, when the heat overload because the pressure switch went out. And luckily, one of the kids said, "Dad, I think something's wrong with your compressor because I bet every time I've been outside, I've heard that thing running." And so, sure enough, I went out there, and on the pressure switch, I turned it off and on, and it wouldn't turn off. I finally just had to unplug it, and yeah, it was. So that's one of the next projects I gotta do. I'll probably do a video on that as well. But let's see here. Ten Tigers says most people don't want to learn anymore after they get out of school. I want to know everything though. Yeah, I tend to be the same way. Did you lose power with the latest bad weather? No. Um, uh, actually, since we've been living where we are now, is one of the best power providers I've ever had. When we lived in Montana, the power went out regularly, especially when it got bitter cold. And understand, bitter cold for Montana is 40 below. Bitter cold here in the Ozarks is like 14 degrees, something like that. But still, it still makes the same load on the system, right? Because you still have people calling on their electricity to provide either to blow the heat, whether they're on propane or natural gas. You still need electricity to run the blower on your furnace, and then a lot of people use supplemental heaters as well in the bedrooms and in the rooms that are furthest away from the furnace. So yeah, but no, we don't really have any issues or problems with that. And plus, we have the wood burning stove, and it's capable of heating pretty much the whole house. And um, we've got a little less than 25 acres in you know stock full of hardwoods, and so the only limiting factor on that is me being able to get my fat ass out there and do something about it. So Um, what about you, Ten Tigers? Did you end up losing in power over any of these recent weather cuts or the what do they call that? The polar freeze or whatever. And did you guys notice that like they're naming like cold fronts and stuff like that as they come in? Like oh my god, it's a big deal. That there's cold weather coming in, things like that. But no, we ran the stove, the wood burning stove during all of that, and we stayed nice and toasty. Not a problem for us, and we have electric heat. So if we had an extended period of time without electricity, obviously that could be problematic for us. But right now it's not. All right, Tin Tiger says, for me, it was bad as the power went out for 9 hours and it got down to 7 degrees. Ooh, yeah. Sorry to hear that, Tin Tigers. That's not good. And we definitely had times like that when we lived in Montana. And typically, what we would do is we would get out the air mattresses and camping pads and stuff like that. And we would all lay in the living room where our wood burning stove was there and just wait out the power outage, so to speak. Excuse me. And in that house, I think we had hot water heat, in floor hot water heat, and it's kind of good, kind of bad. I don't know. I'm a forced air guy myself. Back in the day, I installed ductwork into new construction houses. And I worked my way up to being a manufacturer's representative for a major HVAC manufacturer. And so I'm kind of a forced air guy myself, but is what it is. Chuck's Classic Cycle says Southeast Oklahoma electric is pretty good, but the weather infrastructure is horrible. Yeah, I'm not familiar with that myself, Chuck, but if you have something you'd like to share about that, please do. I see Tin Tiger says, I waited to see what the power company was going to do. I said it was going to be 24 more, and that's when I got out the propane heater. Yeah. And we definitely have the propane heaters and whatnot too. Palmetto Paratrooper says the water in Northeast Oklahoma is awful too. Yeah, we actually have a well here. Um, we get around where we live. They call it community water. That's just what the local people call it. And there's a town about 8 miles away from here, and they ran a pipeline out here. And I don't know this for a fact, but I'm assuming that what it is the federal government has been paying um, municipalities as well as the shoot, having a brain fart, electricity, things like that, and water utilities. That's what it's about. And paying utilities to provide services to rural customers, and so um, the the people that own this property before we had it, a big windstorm came through here, and they just had one of those little tin sheds on top of a concrete pad, and the wind came and just completely laid waste to their whole pump house, basic, water well pump house. And rather than rebuild all of it, they decided to and the guy that used to own this place was a heavy equipment operator. He now owns his own company. He's a good friend of mine, great guy, and he does work for me. But anyways, at the time he decided, nah, it'll just be cheaper to you know dig um, a trench, basically a quarter mile from the county road all the way down to the house, and just go off of community water. And so I have a well, and the water's good. You can drink it, but there's something wrong with it, and it's just been one of those situations to where if I had the money, I couldn't get anyone to come out because chicken houses are really prevalent around here, and when it's really hot, you can't get a well servicing company to come out unless you're a chicken house without water. Because the chicken houses around here depend on water because they all have evaporative cooling to keep the chicken houses cool. And so you can't get them to come out. And then, during the winter, um, typically, that's not on my priority list of things that I need or want to spend money on. Let's see. Chuck's Classic Cycle says, such rocky ground, so it's difficult to get a well. Yeah. I have rural public water, but the lines are old and always breaking. I wouldn't trust to drink it. Yeah. We also have a um, reverse osmosis water system through APEC, as in Adam Papa Edward Charles APEC. And I did a review on it on my channel. If you guys want to go take a look, it's a very good, um, not not high cost water system or water filtering system that does a good job. It's not like it's not a big name like Aquasana or something like that. However, and actually, I didn't know this until just like a week or two ago that APEC is actually, I guess, owned by one of the big water companies. Like I don't think it's Colligan, but it's a big name, something like that, or Aquasana, or someone like that. That's in the water game, been in the water game for quite a while, and that's just what they do. But um, yeah, the rock and things like that are definitely an issue. And I know that here on this property, like when we were putting in my mom's house, we were lucky or blessed or whatever. And when we were trying to do the trench to do the propane from the tank to the house, we were only able to get down like maybe 6 inches or something like that before we hit bedrock. And so there were steps that we had to take to reinforce the line and stuff like that. But then when we put in the septic system, we were able to fully bury it down like 8 feet or something like that before we hit bedrock. And so, either way, it's not very much. And, it sounds like a lot of you guys, live around the Ozarks region somewhere. And, that because of the bedrock not being down very far, a lot of the trees around here just don't have a very healthy root system. If you like, you go back to Kansas or someplace like that, like midway in Kansas, geographically mid state in Canvas, and you try to dig up an oak tree, and, it's like you're in for a fight. Those trees typically, have a tap root, that goes right straight down for 20 or 30 feet, something like that. In some cases, and yeah, it's an interesting thing for sure. And actually, if you guys didn't know this, if you're like out in the Mountain West or something like that, and there's very little trees except for the forested areas in the mountains because they get monsoon rains from being in a much higher elevation. But basically that's all high desert out there. And so if it's a summertime and you see live trees, there's water there. Um, if it's a summertime and there's dead trees there, it means there used to be water there. There could still be some water there, but it's not like running, flowing water. Might be a good place to try to dig a well, but definitely not. Yeah, so a lot of people don't know that. A lot of people don't understand that if you've never been there. And it's kind of like one of those things too. Like if you're from the Mountain West, you understand that everyone burns pine. And you talk to people around here about burning pine, and that's like, ah! It's like, yeah, oh my God, you're gonna burn down your house because you burn pine. Well, no, you just have to understand what it is that you've got to do to make it work and to take precautions and whatnot. All those things, and it's just the difference in where you live geographically and what's available to you. Yeah, but just like Chuck was saying, that the ground's really rocky, and you wouldn't really trust the water. Speaking of that, have you guys kept up with the Big Berkey saga and all that stuff going on about whether or not the filters actually work the way they're supposed to? Kind of interesting thing too, talking about the geographical things. Water here is very expensive. I was quite surprised by that when I moved here, 7 years ago now, something like that. Just the cost of water is significantly higher than what it was in the Mountain West. Tin Tiger says he grew up in Oklahoma. He now lives in Bentonville, or did live in Bentonville, and now lives in Georgia. Okay, cool. I spent about a year in Georgia over a couple of months. No, wait, no, I take it back. It wasn't Georgia. It was Alabama. I apologize. I was getting confused there. I think I've driven through Georgia. I don't think I've ever actually been to Georgia. My basic in AIT was in Alabama, Fort McClellan to be exact, Alabama. Ozzy Chuck says, watch several reviews on it. Some people still suggest them. I wouldn't waste my money. Ah, okay. Chuck's talking about the Berkey filters. Yeah, the last that I saw was for those of you that have been with the channel for a long time, been a prepper for a long time, 10 years or thereabouts, something like that. And a channel that I've been following for a long time is LDS Prepper, as in Lincoln David Sam LDS, or I don't know. I can't remember my phonetic alphabet. I don't use it enough to keep it all readily present in my mind. But anyways, he was saying that because he's got a pretty good sized channel and a good presence, good following, and he's a Berkey reseller. And he was saying that, in his opinion, a lot of that stuff actually was people that were using um, imposter, fake stuff from China, and buying them off of Amazon and stuff like that. And they were supposed to be real legitimate filters, and they weren't. And you know, so who knows, right? I guess if you really wanted to know, right, you'd buy the filters and then take some of your filtered water and send it in and have it tested. But yeah, that's what Tin Tigers was saying. Yeah, same thing about being fake ones. And Palmetto Paratrooper says he grew up in South Carolina, and now lives in Oklahoma. Yeah, I grew up in the Mountain West. Lived there for uh, like the seventh grade on, something like that. And after I graduated, I went in the army and military police, and ended up hurting my back, and got out in like 1991, something like that. I don't know. And yeah, went back to the Mountain West, lived there until about 7 years ago when I moved here. So I lived in the Mountain West most of my life. Colorado, Montana, Wyoming, all up and down the Rocky Mountain Range there. It's real pretty. It's a decent place to live. I know for us, like one of the biggest issues was just that technical term for it is gentrification, and I know that because when I moved here, I was going to school for social work, believe it or not, and yeah, it was. I just got to the point where I couldn't do it anymore, and I still remember having the conversation with my vocational rehabilitation counselor through the VA Veterans Administration. I was just like, yeah, I can't do this. 'Cause I don't agree with this. Actually, what they're teaching these young social workers is that they're not just social justice warriors. As a social worker, you are a social justice warrior enforcer because you have the weight of the government behind you. And yeah, I was just like, yeah, no, I'm not doing this. It's like, yeah, I really genuinely do care about people and, enjoy helping people. And, you know, I'll have to find some other way to do it because I ain't doing this. Oh, okay. Palmetto paratrooper says his basic and EIT were in Missouri. He was stationed in Alaska. Oh, you were at Fort Lost in the Woods, huh? In let's see, Homaso Tutelico. Oh, that's an interesting name. Nature Coast of Florida saying hi. Hey, right back at you. Thanks for joining us tonight. I appreciate it. Thank you. And just so this is an impromptu, first ever live stream. So if you're watching the replay or you're joining the live stream for the first time, just understand, we don't necessarily have any one thing that we're here to talk about. We're just shooting the bull. So feel free to ask any questions. I won't be offended as long as you're not offended if I don't answer the question that you asked. But, what do they call it? AMA, ask me anything. No guarantee I'll answer it, but you can certainly ask. All right. Let's see here. See if I missed anything. So are you at Fort Leonard Wood or Lost in the Woods, Palmetto? So what's the Nature Coast of Florida, Hamasa? I'm not familiar with that term. So what do you think is going to end up happening over the next couple of months as the Republicans take over the House of Representatives and McCarthy's now the Speaker of the House? Anything good? Tin Tigers asks, "Will there be a war soon?" I don't think so. Actually, I think that the war in Europe, or well, the war between Ukraine and Russia, I think it'll be ending soon. Actually, myself personally, I think that there's truth to the rumor that Putin has cancer and that they're going to be calling a ceasefire soon. And excuse me, sorry about that. And that, yeah, personally, again, just my opinion, but the things that I'm seeing and the sources that I'm hearing them from, who knows? But yeah, personally, I think it'll be over soon. Putin just recently declared a ceasefire for. I was trying to think of the term Orthodox Christmas, and so it'll be interesting to see how all that plays out. And Palmetto paratrooper says he was. So he was at Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri, or Fort Lost in the Woods, as a lot of veterans call it. But no, I don't think there's going to be. Now, having said that, I do think that there's probably a pretty good chance that there's going to be some type of war in the Middle East. And in my opinion, and again, it's just that, but in my opinion, I think it's going to be like, what was it? What did they call it? The 10-day war or something like that. when they tried to invade Israel, and you know they just shellacked them in 10 days or whatever. And I think it'll probably be something like that again, and it'll probably be, you know, in my opinion, some rogue state like um, Iraq or Iran or something like that. They're going to try to invade Israel, and it'll be another very swift, very quick, judicious exercise, and it won't last long. But yeah, I don't see it. Just again, in my opinion, I just don't see it turning into something like a world war or anything like that. Let's see. Uh, Hamasa says west coast of Florida, starting a half hour north of Tampa. Hunting, fishing, and lots of small towns. Okay, all right, yeah. My son-in-law. Um, so I'm kind of familiar with that. They're from Port St. Joe or something like that, and so I'm a little bit familiar with that. Um, um, Growing up in the Mountain West, I didn't really understand um, what heat index was, and so I was staying at the Innisbrook Resort on a business trip, and I ended up getting heat exhaustion, borderline heat stroke. Um, uh, back when I was younger, and because I had my first spinal fusion in like 1989, 1990, something like that. I don't know. And over the years, just the agility that I have in my lower back and being able to rotate my hips and stuff like that has changed tremendously. But back in my late 20s, early 30s, I can still play golf pretty good. And I played on a lot of the nicer, more prestigious golf courses in Colorado. And there, you got to wear slacks or Dockers or something like that. No blue jeans. So something that a nice pair of pants. And so I'm thinking, well, this is the Innisbrook, And back in the day, they played the J.C. Penney Classic there, and so I'm like, okay, well, I got to wear a pair of pants, and so I'm checking in, and the golf pro is the guy that checked me in at the counter there, and when I was paying and everything, and he was like, "Hey, are you from around here?" I was like, "No." I said, at the time I was from Colorado, and I said, "I'm from Colorado," and he's like, "Yeah, that's kind of what I thought." And he's like, I tell people this all the time, and they never listen to me, so I don't expect you to either. But um, you're probably going to want to go over there to the pro shop and buy yourself a pair of shorts because it is too hot here. The heat index today was like something crazy, like 104 or something like that. And he's telling me, hey, you're going to want to do something different than what you got going on right now. And I'm like, I didn't really listen to him. And so, I played, the full 18 holes, the whole golf course. Beautiful, beautiful golf course. Really nice if you're into golf. And I get done and I go into and I know I had a few barley pops when I was playing golf to make it worse. And I go into the bar afterwards, and the guy's like, he takes one look at me and he's like, "Holy crap!" And he's like, "You sit down, and you need to drink like 5 glasses of ice water right now." And I'm like, "Well, dude, what are you talking about?" And he's like, "Yeah, you're borderline, heat exhaustion, heat stroke. You need to do something about it." And long story short, I don't know, it was probably 7 o'clock, something like that. And I had dinner while I was in the bar, and probably got back to my hotel room at about 8 o'clock or something like that. And I just, laid on top of the bedspread, stripped down to my skivvies, and didn't wake up until 6 o'clock the next morning, or whatever it was. I just, as the old saying goes, I didn't know what I didn't know. So let's see. Palmetto Paratrooper says people in the Ozarks think they know what humidity is until they go to the southeast. Yeah, And having said that, the heat here in the Ozarks is significantly more than it is in the Mountain West too. You know, Utah, Colorado, Arizona, Montana, Idaho, that whole area. Arizona, gets hot, but it is, as the old saying goes, yeah, it's hot, but it's dry heat. But heat's still heat. All right, Chuck says it seems dry here. I'm from Northeast Philly and lived in southern Delaware on the coast for years. 99% humidity is bad. Yeah, that's true. Absolutely. And a lot of people don't understand this or believe me when I tell them, but I'll share the story with you. The coldest I've ever been in my life was I was stationed in Aberdeen Proving Grounds, Maryland, and the Chesapeake Bay kind of goes up like this along the East Coast, and you've got the Edgewood area of Aberdeen Proving Grounds on this side, and the regular area, just the regular Aberdeen Proving Grounds. And they used to fire rounds from Aberdeen Proving Grounds over the bay into the Edgewood area. They used to call it the Edgewood Arsenal back in the day. And anyways, I was in the secured area in Aberdeen Proving Grounds, right off the bay, and that was the coldest I've ever been in my entire life. It was right off the bay. The wind is blowing in, and pretty close to the water. And it's like January, February, something like that. And back then, the army did not have any such thing as windproof gear, like Gore-Tex and stuff like that. It's like you had your BDUs, and then you had a BDU coat, which was basically made from the same material as your BDUs were, and you got wool underwear. Well, wool underwear actually does a pretty good job of keeping you warm, but it doesn't stop the wind. And oh my goodness, that's the coldest I've ever been in my life, ever. Nothing else even compares to how cold it was when I was standing guard duty out there that night. It was just like wowzers. It was crazy. And this is someone that's been out, -40 doing fence. And it's, yeah. I mean, honestly though, a lot of that was probably dressed a lot better when I was out doing fence at -40 with modern insulation and layers and windproofing materials and things like that. But back then, nah, those things didn't exist. Let's see, just reading through the comments here. Let's see, Palmetto Paratrooper says, my wife and I are currently making a batch of peach wine. Ooh, that sounds good. From peaches we grew in South Carolina. Whenever I'm on your side, I'll bring you a bottle of it if you want. Heck to the yeah, brother. I'm all about that. Yeah, absolutely. Uh, I haven't made any wine um, myself locally. Um, I tend to run hot and cold. I don't know what it is about that. There's a lot of times that, and for those of you who don't know, Paratrooper and I personally know each other. So, but anyways, so if you're wondering, it's like, oh, that's awkward. Why is he, talking? We know each other. But anyways, yeah, I still have a couple of brown wool sweaters. Yeah, yeah. Actually, that winemaking video is when I first started making videos, I thought people were just as the old saying goes, blowing smoke up my fourth point of contact or whatever. It's like the videos that you spend the most amount of time on, I think you did a really good job on. Those are the videos that no one watches. And the videos that, you just do because someone asked you to or whatever, and, you just throw it up. Those are the ones that always do the best. And that video was one of those. I had been talking to someone about making wine, and they're like, "Oh, well, I've always wanted to learn how to do that." So, well, I'll tell you what, I was visiting people down here in the Ozarks, And I said, well, when I get back to Montana, I'll make a video about that and I'll post it so that you can learn how to do it. And anyways, long story short, that was one of the most successful videos with the most views on it of any video that's on my channel, and it continues to, every year, and brings in the views. So let's see. Tin Tiger says, when I lived in Bentonville, uh, for those of you that don't know, Bentonville is in Arkansas. That's where the headquarters of Walmart actually is. Most of my coworkers made wine at home. I wish I had them teach me when I was there. Yeah, it really does help because otherwise, you're kind of just doing trial and error. But you know, it, nothing about the process is hard. You just have to be able to follow directions and do it. Follow the directions basically. And some of it's trial and error a little bit. Finding out what you like, what you don't like, what works for you, what doesn't work for you. But yeah, I prefer, a sweet wine myself, like a Moscato, things like that. Dessert wines, a lot of people call them, stuff like that. But, that's just me. All right, Tin Tiger says it must be an Ozark thing. People here don't do it. Yeah, I don't know. My son-in-law, who is from that kind of same general area. Oh wait, no, that's Hamasa was down from that part of the woods. But anyways, yeah, it's I've met people from all walks of life, from all over the country that are into doing homebrew, or they call it what, jailbreak wine, jailhouse wine, different things like that. And yeah, I don't know. I like it. Speaking of libations, I don't know if you guys have, because I know times are kind of rough right now. People are looking to save a few bucks wherever they can. If you guys live here around the Ozarks, many of the Sam's Clubs around here have their own line of basically generic spirits, liquors, wines, different things like that. And so, as an example, they have a Sam's Club members mark. That's what I was trying to get. Sam's Club brand is called Members Mark, and they have a really good agave tequila. They have a very good blended Canadian whiskey that, in my opinion, I don't think the average person could tell the difference between it and Crown Royal. They've got some pretty good Moscatos and different things like that as well. And so, I mean, if you're into that kind of thing, and if you enjoy that kind of thing, check it out because they're quite a bit less expensive. You can get like a big bottle of the blended Canadian whiskey for a quarter of the cost of a Crown Royal. And like I said, unless it's someone that is just definitely a connoisseur, I don't think the average person that could tell the difference between it and the real Crown Royal. And I actually suspect that it probably is made by them, and they might just you know twinge it a little bit here or there or something like that, and make it taste just a little bit different, but really smooth, a good taste to it. And so hopefully that'll give that's something of value for you guys. Let's see. Your Tin Tiger says, "I'm all for anything you can do to store your food." Yep. And Palmetto Paratrooper says, "I'm not making wine in the back of the toilet." Yeah, I wouldn't either. Yeah, yeah. If I were able to choose my druthers, but I actually did a stint when I went back to the place where I grew up after I got out of the military. I had the S1 L5 Fusion, like I said, 8990, whatever it was, and I went back, rehabilitated myself, and then got a job at the local. sheriff's department, sheriff's office, whatever they call it where you guys live. And you know, this was like 91, something like that. And everyone that was hired by the sheriff's department or sheriff's office had to do a stint in the jail. And you know, we were actually called jailers back then. You know, the new politically correct term is detention officer. But yeah, no, that's a real deal, guys. People really do that. They make wine, and the trustees and things like that. They get out of their cells during the day and help cook food with the cook and stuff like that. And they have access to all the foods. Yeah, you got to keep a close eye on those guys because they do it. They do it. All right, let's see here. Tin Tiger says, "I've tried preserving blueberries in vodka. It was popular for a while. Best blueberry vodka anyone ever tasted. The fruit didn't turn out that great, though." Yeah, that's interesting. Okay, keep that in mind. And Chuck says, "Not a big drinker, but if times get tough, I can fire up a still for trading." Yeah, that's good. And another thing that I like doing is, oh, and something else I wanted to just share with you guys too, when we were talking about it earlier, is a lot of the Sam's Clubs, at least around here, you don't even have to have a Sam's Club membership to use the liquor store. So, um, you know, anybody can walk in off the street and use the liquor store, and it's owned by Sam's. And the price is in there, like maybe not mind blowing, but pretty close. Like really popular stuff like Maker's Mark, like the big old tankard of Maker's Mark is like half um, at Sam's Club liquor store around here compared to where I can buy it anywhere else. And so, you when I'm feeling flush or reeling flush, I like the Maker's Mark, but most of the time, and not that I drink a lot because I don't necessarily drink a lot, but that's a relative thing for everybody, right? But anyways, um, I just use the Members Mark blended Canadian whiskey, and so for whatever it's worth. Oh, and so what I was going to tell you guys is that actually they've got a sampler box, and I don't know if it was just for Christmas or whatever, but my wife bought it and brought it home, and it's got all of the Members Mark stuff in there. Like they've got a spice rum, they've got a gin, they've got a vodka, and I've heard lots of people that are vodka connoisseurs. As good or better than Tito's on the vodka. I haven't heard about the spiced rum or the gin. Other than kamikazes, I don't really consume gin, but is what it is. But anyways, that would be in my opinion, that could be a good thing for someone to have for bartering. And since that was mentioned in the text conversation, excuse me. Yeah. So another thing to think about, guys, especially as we're going into this financial transition, and another thing that I like to keep on hand is 10th ounce bullion and 10th ounce gold, as it's quite a bit smaller. And I like to give the analogy, if you're trying to barter with someone and you have a whole ounce of gold or a whole ounce of silver, and you just want one chicken, what are you supposed to do? And you're like, yeah, you're going to do what you have to do when the time comes. But at the same time, you don't really want to be, cutting apart your coins, different things like that, so that you can give someone, you know, uh, as the old saying goes, a piece of eight, that type of thing. And so, just something to keep in mind. And Tin Tiger says junk silver coins. Yeah, yeah, that's obviously something that you can do as well. And Palmetto Paratrooper says lots of states it's fine to have a still for personal consumption. Not as common on the East Coast though. South Carolina only allows it for making fuel. Yeah, I looked into that too, Palmetto, and a lot lot of states actually require you to spoil it if you're going to store it as ethanol fuel. And basically, you just got to add gasoline to it. Enough gasoline that's going to make you sick if you try to drink it, basically. But yeah, it just depends. And also understand, guys, as long as we're talking about stills, it kind of goes into that whole medical marijuana thing too. A lot of states uh, approve that, and they say it's okay to do it, but federal government still says no. And so, there are instances where you're going to run into problems with that, or you could. And like one major thing with that I've experienced myself recently, my back condition and all the scar tissue I have and neuropathy in my legs and whatnot. Sleeping at night's extremely difficult, and so I do use it. And it helps me sleep at night. It's the only time I ever take it at night, but it does help. It's not a cure all, don't get me wrong, but it does help. And anyways, when I went to renew my concealed carry permit here in the state that I live in, I couldn't do it. Um, Basically, when you go to renew your carried concealed permit, um, it's a situation where they're asking you the exact same questions that you have to answer when when you go in to buy a firearm yourself for the first time from a licensed dealer. Private party is a completely different situation, but if you're buying it from a licensed dealer, you got to answer those questions. Have you ever in the last year have you used a class 1 narcotic? And whether we like it or agree with it or not, the federal government still considers that to be a class 1 narcotic. And so you can't legally answer that question. And so luckily the state that I live in, they have basically constitutional carry. It hasn't been passed by yet by a declaration of law through the state legislature, but the state's attorney general's office has put out a letter saying that, yeah, as far as they're concerned, constitutional carry is fine. They're not going to pursue it. Yeah, exactly, Chuck. Um, Pot is class 1, but meth is a slap on the wrist, and there's a reason for that. And again, just in my opinion, and again, guys, going back to the beginning of this, I don't know. I don't have to know who they, quote unquote, who they are to know that they have an agenda, in that this world is following that agenda during this time. And in my opinion, cannabis, marijuana, whatever you want to call it, definitely has medicinal qualities and things that benefit people. And when you're partaking in that, you're not partaking in the prescribed medications by the pharmaceutical cartels, and they don't like that. So we'll just leave it at that. All right, let's see here. The Palmetto Paratrooper says, "I barely care what the state says. I couldn't care less what the feds say." Yeah, yeah. At heart, I agree with that. And for me personally, the only caveat to that is, kind of being someone who puts their face out there, and is at times, not afraid to say what I think. We'll just call it that. Probably not a good idea to be lying on a federal form. So, yeah, I'll just leave it at that. So, all right, Tin Tiger says, that is a shame. I was put on this world for a reason. Use what works. I don't want it to be legal, but I'm unhappy that criminals control it. Yeah, yeah, me too. And not only that, guys, but the whole the whole medical system, right now with all of this socialism being pushed and everything, is even our medicine now, and it's very much in the whole VA or Veterans Administration thing. And just to give you guys an idea of what I'm talking about, unfortunately, for whatever reason, fat, lazy, whatever, I got sleep apnea, and um, my sleep apnea was so bad that I was at the point that I would wake up in the middle of the night, literally gasping for air. Because that's what actually what happens with sleep apnea is you stop breathing while you're sleeping. And I called and this is back, during the whole C-19 health scare thing. And basically, they're just like, yeah, the sleep clinic is closed now, and so you're just gonna have to figure it out for yourself. And basically, we're not going to help you. And so I did everything I could. I even contacted my senator's office, and they filed a petition on my behalf. And I've used them before, and they were able to make things happen, so to speak, but not in this instance. And so, and they were like, like, no, until this whole thing is over, the sleep clinic is not going to reopen. And until it reopens, there's nothing that anyone's going to be able to do for you. And so I ended up having to go to just the regular local doctor around here through my insurance, and explain the situation, and they were like, "Yeah, no problem. We'll get you a home test kit that's approved through your insurance provider." And it was the same type of deal. Had a little thing you put over your mouth and a thing that you wrap around your chest, so it can measure your respirations and your heartbeat, and then a thing that you put on your finger while you're sleeping. Excuse me. And I was able to get everything, and even got the CPAP machine um, set up, delivered everything. And the VA, who was supposed to be responsible for all of this stuff and taking care of all of that, were just like, yeah, no. And for me personally, it's infuriating. During that whole health scare, federal employees sitting around on their thumbs doing nothing all day, every day, and getting paid, their full wage for doing nothing. Meanwhile, they're denying services to people and everything. It is what it is. But yeah. uh, let's see. Palmetto Paratrooper says, "What you put in your body is your business, especially when it meets Genesis 129 standard." Yeah, personally, I would tend to agree with that as well. And Tin Tiger says, "Personally, I don't like the government's war on OxyContin. Dad had cancer, and it was a battle to get pain meds for him. People are suffering." Yeah, absolutely. And it's even worse than that, in my opinion, right now. Um, when I was still living in Montana, this is back in like 2008, 2009, right after the big crash had happened, and I had been working for a um, like a kind of a hardware store, but it was more like a Lowe's, but it was like a local franchise, where they like had builder services and lumber and all that too. But on top of that, it was a hardware store as well, and they had a couple of locations around us. And I had been working there, and I ended up getting laid off because, man, no one was building anymore, and so there just wasn't a need for my services. And then I got a job. Um, Selling case heavy equipment for a while, and then same thing, and ended up getting laid off because no one was buying heavy equipment during that time. And as it ended up, the only job that I could get, to provide for my family, was a job at the billing office in the hospital. And thankfully, that was because of a family member that worked at the hospital, was able to put in a good word for me. And so it wasn't a great job, but it was a decent job. And um, you know, part of my job was helping people with billing issues. And guys, let me tell you what, trying to get the Veterans Administration to pay for anything retroactive is, it ain't happening, basically. I mean, quite literally, it takes like, a call from a senator's office or something like that, telling them, no, you are going to do this. And so, anyways, I told you that to preface what I was about ready to tell you, which is simply that now they're allowing vets to go to private healthcare people, and the Veterans Administration or VA is supposed to be paying for that, which is a good thing by and large. However, the thing that they don't tell you, and the thing that they're not, um, at least the last I knew in the state that I'm in, they still haven't changed. And that is that when you go in and you sign that consent for treatment, on that consent for treatment, it says that you agree that you personally are 100% responsible for all of the charges. They'll bill whoever you want them to bill, but whatever they don't pay, you're responsible for. And the issue or the problem with that, excuse me, is that if that doctor's office provides some service or bills at a level higher than what the VA allows, you're personally responsible for that. Well, in my situation with my back issue, that's 100% connected. 100% of any care that involves that has to be paid out at 100%. And so, in my own situation, maybe 3 years ago, 4 years ago, I was trying to get the VA to send me to a pain specialist to see if there was something that they could do for me. Because, like you're talking about, they won't give you any pain meds anymore. And on the outside, yeah, I get that, I understand it, but at the same time, you can't just take it away from people and then give them nothing at the same time. And that's what happened to me, and that's what happened to lots of other people. I never once ever abused it in any way, shape, or form. Never once, used all of my medication before it was time or anything like that. So, never any reason to doubt what I was saying or anything like that. But long story short, they sent me to a pain management clinic, and I'm reading the consent for treatment, and I crossed out the personal guarantee part, and they refused to see me because of that. And it was another one of those situations where I ended up calling my senator's office and tried to get help and assistance with it, and they just would not budge. And I even talked to all of the civic organizations that help vets and stuff like that, and they were all just like, "Oh, I don't understand what you're making such a big deal about. Just go get the help you need and worry about the rest later." I'm like, "No, you don't understand. You can end up, on the hook for thousands and thousands of dollars worth of treatment that the VA is not going to pay for." And, you know, like I said, short of, a senator's call or something like that, and even sometimes even with that, they don't care. It's like, no, it wasn't pre-approved, and because it wasn't or pre-authorized, and because it wasn't pre-authorized, they're not going to pay it, and you're on the hook for it. Obviously, that's a huge issue as a veteran. If you're 100% service connected, and the reason why you're there was 100% service connected, and there's no way you should ever end up owing thousands and thousands of dollars, but you could end up being in that situation. So, for those of you guys that are veterans, keep that in mind as you're going about your business and getting yourself taken care of. The VA is always a talking point at the AMVETS meetings. Yeah, yeah, I agree. Ted Tigers. Actually, in a former life, so to speak, um, when I live in Colorado, I had a fairly high level job working for a Fortune 500 company at the time, and um, part of my job was being a member of the local community, so to speak. And so I was on like the board of directors for several businesses and counties and um, colleges, things like that. And um, while I was doing that, um, I remember what we were talking about, but I during one of those, I think it was for a college that I was on the board for. Excuse me, and I let it, let everyone know, through comment, basically that I was a veteran. And afterwards, the guy came up and talked to me, and he was the director of the Denver VA. And he was like, "Oh, I'd like to buy you lunch sometime and pick your brain about, what we can do to make the VA better." And I was like, "Hey, I know you don't know me very well, but you know, don't ask me my opinion on something if you don't want the truth." And I said, because that's just who I am. And if you're one of those people, or because I didn't know the guy, right? And I was just like, "Hey, I'll tell you whatever you want to know, but don't ask me if you don't want to know, because I'll tell you." And so, long story short, yeah, and this was back before. See, back then, a lot of the people that lived in and around the eastern side of the Rocky Mountains in Colorado, they call that the Front Range. If you live on the back side of the mountains or the west side, they call that the Western Slope. And a lot of people that lived on the Front Range, rather than dealing with the Denver VA because it was so terrible, they would drive to Cheyenne, Wyoming to get treatment. Well, Cheyenne, Wyoming, they're buckling under the pressure of having all these greenies from Colorado coming up to Wyoming to get treatment. And, the guy that was a director of the Denver VA, he's grousing too because, well, you're stealing money from your local VA by going to Wyoming. What are you doing? And, it was an eye-opening meeting for him, shall we say. I don't think the guy had ever, honestly, I don't think the guy had ever had anyone just, bluntly tell him their opinion of the VA there in the Denver area. And, it was horrid. The employees there treated you like they were doing you a favor by even talking to you or answering your question or whatever. And, like the security people that you would see there and be like, "Hey, I'm looking for this doctor's office, whatever." And half the time they would ignore you. They wouldn't even address the fact that you were trying to talk to them. And, the few times that they'd be like, and then walk off and leave you standing there, just that type of thing. And it was terrible. It was bad. And so I don't know about you guys, but for me personally, I have not had good experiences, generally speaking, with the VA. Now, I will say that when I was in Montana, the VA in Montana was actually very good. I was very happy with most of the treatment that I got there. I actually had another fusion was done there while I was in Montana, back fusion, and overall very happy with the VA in Montana. Um, the VA here in the Ozarks that I go to, nah, it it wasn't that great when I first got here. When Trump was president, it was starting to turn around, but as soon as Trump was out of there, they not only did it go back to being what it was before Trump was president, but it was even worse than that. And just people's attitudes and in the way they did things and the way they ran things was just like completely in my opinion, completely unacceptable. um, are you guys enjoying hearing my little war stories and everything? But anyways, so to give you an idea what I'm talking about, I went in there to my local VA one day. It was just for my yearly physical checkup, whatever. And you had to do that. You got to go in every year. Or if you don't, they won't give you your meds or anything like that. You got to be seen once a year. And not that I necessarily have a problem with that, but every year when you go in, it's like you're starting all over again. And so I'm in there, and they're like, "Well, why are you here?" And I was like, "Well, it's my yearly check-in, whatever." And uh, I had to come. I needed my meds renewed, and they wouldn't renew my meds if I didn't come in for an evaluation. And it's like, okay, well, what's wrong with you? Well, my back hurts, whatever. Okay. And then, they wanted me to, like, I don't remember exactly, but basically I was trying to stand up for something. And while I'm standing up, the nurse was all like, "Oh, let me help you." And as she's helping me, she's taking her finger and she's jabbing her finger in my back in the area that I'm telling her hurt. And, I'm just like, okay, well, I don't want to overreact to this, but at the same time, I'm definitely making a mental note of this. Is like, what the hell are you doing, lady? And, thankfully she didn't get it, in the hot spot, so to speak, or whatever. And so, like, they wanted me to, like, see how far I could bend over, I think is what was going on, checking my range of motion. And then when I go to sit down, she does it again. When I sit down, she pokes me again. And I looked her right in the eye and I said, "Lady, if you stick your finger in my back again, we're gonna have a problem." Her eyes got about this big, and she's all like, "Well, I don't have any idea what you're talking about." And I was like, "The hell you don't." I was like, "It's the second time now you've poked me in the back. It wasn't okay the first time you did it, and it sure as hell wasn't okay the second time." "Well, you're not gonna talk to me like that." And, "Well, you're not gonna stab me in the back with your finger like that again either." And, so, it wasn't like, a real heated discussion, but at the same time, it wasn't jovial either. So I go in and I'm talking to the doctor, and the doctor's like, "Well, I'm sensing hostility from you, or, you don't want to be here." And I was like, "Yeah, you're right. I don't." I was like, "You guys don't give a crap about us. And, you're just here collecting a paycheck." And, the doctor's like, "Well, feigning, in my opinion, feigning being offended or whatever." And so it's like, well, he's like, "Well, give me an example." And I was like, "Well, the gal you got out there, she's, doing my induction, or, whatever intake, I guess they call that." And, I told her why my back hurts. And then she wanted to check my range of motion. And when I tried to stand up, she acted like she was, trying to help me. And, she jabbed her finger in my back. And I didn't say anything about it then, but when I went, back to sit down, she did it again. And I was like, "What kind of crap is that?" I said, "I have never ever had a civilian doctor do that to me, ever." And, I had my first back surgery, 89, 90, something like that. And, never, ever, not even once did I have this, just a regular civilian doctor ever jab his finger in my back, to see if my back really hurt. But, and as sad as it makes me to to experience that, I guess is the word I'm looking for. Guys, that's where we're headed. If we don't get the things turned around, um, yeah, it's not good. The socialized medicine that we're heading towards is not good in any way. And, and that's absolutely where the VA is headed as well. Who works for whom? The lady was a federal employee who worked for the Veterans Administration, Palmetto. She was I don't know if she was actually a nurse. She might have been like a medical technologist or something. My daughter does that. She went to work school for, I don't know, 6 months or something like that. And it's like, you're kind of in between a nurse and a CNA, certified nursing assistant. It's kind of somewhere between there. Like you can draw blood and different things like that, but you're not a nurse, but you're not just a CNA either. I like this. Palmetto Paratrooper says, "What do you call someone that graduated medical school at the bottom of their class?" I know this, and I actually give people this example all the time. It's doctor. No matter how crappy they were, as long as they graduate, they're doctor. Papa Pepper, hey, what's up, brother? What's going on? Hey, we're just shooting the bull. This is my first ever live stream, and we're just shooting the bull. Tin Tiger says, by the way, fish antibiotics will only be available by prescriptions for your fish after June. Thanks for sharing that, Tin Tigers. That's definitely an important thing to know because right now that's still a good source that where you can, um, for the time being, anyways, legally get antibiotics. And Papa Pepper says, "Love that rock behind the wood stove. Reminds me of home." Yeah, we like it too. And actually, it's faux or fake, whatever you want to call it, but it's a real cement product. But you it's like you buy them on like a flat, and they're all stacked on there. They're kind of hollow underneath, but yeah, it looks nice. Thank you. I like it too. So what's going on out there at the Papa Pepper homestead? You have a beautiful family, by the way, brother. I really enjoyed getting to meet you. Oh, nice. You actually pulled yours out of the creek. Yeah. Actually, this was done. We bought the house like this. We ended up, putting in a new stove, different things like that, and redoing the flue and some other things. It was leaking, but yeah, it was done before. Oh, smoking venison. Nice. Nice. I love venison. That's really good. I dearly love smoked venison. That's yeah, especially if it's like a nice tender cut of meat too. And people will be like, "Oh, how can you say that?" But I don't know. Like a really good cut of meat, like yeah, pun play on words. Dearly love. Yeah, good one. But anyways, a really good high quality cut of venison, like backstrap or something like that. Yeah, yeah, that's really good stuff. And the reason why, is because it's such a tender piece of meat, and when you smoke it, it's just like, "Ah, that's really good." Palmetto Palmetto paratrooper said, "It's gotta be rough on your lungs." Smoking venison, get it. Yeah. People are starting to get a little loopy now, which is fine. I don't mind at all. All right, Chuck says, "Are the Ozarks being invaded by Texans and Callies? The small town I live was a population of 163 just a couple years ago. Now where it's over 1,000, mostly Texans." Yes and no. One of the things that I made abundantly clear to my neighbors when I moved here was that I bought the house that I'm living in right now. I bought it at a pre foreclosure, and so I wasn't. Adding to the gentrification of the area by buying it and moving in here. Now, having said that, I will tell you that when I lived in Montana, I lived. I don't know if do you guys watch Yellowstone? It's really popular right now on Paramount Plus. Yellowstone. But anyways, that's supposed to be the area around Bozeman, Montana, and they it's like it's kind of correct geographically in the names of things, but then again, it's not. Like the area where the patriarchs ranches, they call it Paradise Valley. Well, that's not really on that side of Bozeman. It's actually over another mountain pass over south of Livingston is actually where Paradise Valley is. But anyways, that whole area absolutely is being overrun with Californians and Texans, and they are absolutely gentrifying, gentrifying that area over there. It's really bad. And actually, my oldest son, and his daughter in the last 2 years ended up moving here for that very reason. And, they, as the old saying goes, they cut a fat hog, so to speak, when they sold their place. They made a ton of money off of it just in like a year's time, and timed it it just doesn't work out. They timed it perfectly, and were able to move here with a good chunk of change and buy a decent place when they got here. But yeah, that's definitely a deal, Chuck. And it was the same thing in Colorado when we lived in Colorado. In Wyoming is the same way. Uh, I've got a childhood friend that still lives in that area, and yeah, they're driving up the price of everything. Nothing is affordable anymore, not even close to it. And basically you've got to be a trust fund baby, or just sold your house for $1 million or something like that, and you're rolling into the area flush. So property prices skyrocket. Yep, that too. 1K per acre just some years ago. Now it's insane. Yeah, yeah. That's about what I ended up paying for mine too. Papa was about $1,000 an acre, and a lot of it also is not like flat good ground where you could grow a crop or raise animals on. A lot of it's really rocky and steep. All right, Palmetto says, I've only lived in Northeast Oklahoma for a couple of weeks. So far as I know, it's only being invaded by Carolinians. Well, at least you're from South Carolina instead of North Kakalaka. And if you're from the Carolinas, you'll know what that means. I'm sure Palmetto knows what that is. North Kakalaka. Lol flat. I remember that. Yeah. Yeah. I actually do. I've probably got about 4 or 5 acres right now that's cleared and that I could be raising livestock on if I wanted to. Because right now we don't want to. And as I was talking about in the beginning, just we've had a lot of turbulence, shall we say, over the last 3 years or so. Just yeah, is what it is, and not not really willing to commit to something I'm not sure I can follow through on. And kind of what I'm talking about. When we were in Montana, we tried having goats for a while, and it wasn't pretty. We ended up, having goats and ended up dying from exposure. We had a little insulated, like one of those big old igloo style dog houses, and I put a heat lamp in it and everything. And but unfortunately, the little male goat that we had, um, there was a big doe that was inside that wouldn't allow him inside. And so we came out the next morning and he's laying there in the entrance and deader than a doornail and froze to death. And so yeah, for me personally, I'm just the kind of person. It's like I understand there's a difference, because I mean I grew up in that part of the country, and had friends all through junior high and high school that had livestock, and I've branded, I've been out during calving season and pulled them all out and done all of that, and so I get all that. There's a difference between being a pet owner and a livestock owner. I truly get that. But just for me personally, just, until I know that I'm completely ready for it, I just don't want to get into it. But that's just me. Palmetto says the only state in the South with South in the name. Yeah, yeah, South Carolina. Yep. The Gamecocks. Do you guys follow sports at all? You guys who I don't even know what's going on in the world of sports. I don't really follow football anymore. I used to like totally be into all of that, but not so much anymore. Just too many other things that keep my attention, so to speak. Because we got the national championship coming up pretty soon, I think, and then the Super Bowl at the end of the month, right? The playoffs are right now. I only keep up with enough of it to talk to my sons about it every now and then, but I'm not really into it. Certainly not like I used to be. I used to know all the players that follow them, through their college careers and pro careers, and knew all the coaches and their tenures, and all the places that they coached at, different things like that. And actually, kind of a interesting factoid: Wyoming actually um, holds the distinction of having, as a Division I program, the distinction of having the most previous coaches go on to win a national championship somewhere else. So yeah, it was let's see. Papa says, "Well, yeah, good to see you. Congrats on the first live. I got to go. Be blessed." Hey, thanks, Papa. I really appreciate you for checking in with us, and you be blessed as well. Palmetto says, "I have a friend in South Carolina that just lost 7 sheep to worms in less than a month." Yeah, yeah, it's a big deal. Um, I was thinking about doing sheep as well at some point, and one of the breeds that I was looking at getting was wow, Saint Croix. That's a Saint Croix for that very reason. That if you're not going to keep your sheep all shot up with antibiotics and anti-wormer and all of that uh, in these hot, humid environments, it's hard to keep your sheep healthy, especially if you're trying to do it naturally. But some of the breeds, like and was it? Maybe you know this palmetto, but I think it's called Carolina Firecracker or something like that. Is another breed that does really well in the hot, humid areas that tend to have a really bad problem with worms and other um, nasty stuff in the soil and grass and stuff. And if you guys didn't know this, growing up in the Mountain West, it was a big part of learning about our history. Was back during the days, they had range wars, and like if you guys are watching Yellowstone, you're seeing that, or wait, no, 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 wait, that was the newer one, 1935. What is it? Harrison Ford? It's a prequel, and but anyways, they're showing you, the wars that were happening between the cattle ranchers and the sheep herders, because the sheep, when they eat, they use their tongue and their lips, and they wrap it around the grass, and they actually pull it out of the ground. And when that happens, it's much harder for the grass to regrow after that versus um, bovines. Um, they just use their teeth, or a horse even, and they bite through the grass and then pull it out, and so the bottom part of the plant is still there, the roots are still there. But that's not the case with sheep, and um, the historians will tell you that's part of the proliferation of the sagebrush in the Mountain West. It was from that, because of that. The sheep, they overgrazed, and when that happened, they pulled the roots out of all of the wild grasses, and the grasses all died. And so the only thing that grew in their place was sagebrush. And so, if you guys got kids, smart kids, and they're looking for something that they could do, to become like crazy wealthy, figure out something that you can do with sagebrush. And I've told all of my kids this, that because in the Mountain West, there's literally thousands of hectares of acreage that is covered in sagebrush. And as far as anyone knows, it's completely worthless. There's nothing you can do for it. At least down in Texas and stuff where they have mesquite that looks similar to sagebrush. It's a very similar type of plant, but there's nothing you can do with sagebrush. Nothing that adds value to anything that man is currently aware of. But man, if you could figure that out, yeah, you'd end up doing really well for yourself. Well, guys, it's a little over 2 hours, and my voice is starting to crack and getting really dry. So I think I'm going to bug out for the night. Thank you so much for joining me. I do really appreciate it. And again, thank you. And we'll try to do this a little bit more often now that we're kind of getting back into the swing of things. But be on the lookout. Got several new videos coming out over the next couple of weeks. Another customer service story that's in my opinion, is a good story, and some other good reviews on things like the Cobalt 24 volt tools, and a whole bunch of Harbor Freight stuff, welder and welding cart, and tool cart tools, air compressor, lots of stuff. So stick around, guys. I greatly appreciate it, and for especially those of you that have been around for a long time, thank you very much. I really appreciate it. And with that, guys, I'm done. I greatly appreciate you, and we'll see you soon. Bye bye.